Thank you. It is such an immense honour to be invited back here for this wonderful occasion, and I'm so incredibly humbled and grateful, so thank you for having me here tonight. The last time that I had the honour of standing on this stage was 4 years ago, as I was about to commence my final year of education as school captain at Melbourne Girls Grammar. And I thought that it would be only fitting to begin by reflecting on what I said then. At the time, I spoke with unbridled optimism of what my future could bring. I reflected on my dreams and my goals, and the powerful belief that with integrity, with courage, with compassion, and with self-discipline, whatever I set my mind to, I could accomplish. Whatever achievement I sought was within my grasp, and whatever challenge I faced, I was equipped to overcome it. So 4 years on, I guess the best question is how that attitude has shifted. And it was only when I thought about this that I really came to realize how profoundly lucky I was to have held that level of optimism and confidence as a 17-year-old girl. Because when I compare myself then to myself now, I can't help but realize that something has changed. Are my dreams the same as what they were at 17? Are my hopes and aspirations as large? Is my potential in this world as promising? It's admittedly hard to acknowledge, but when I think about it, I do begin to doubt myself. It's not that I feel less motivated, less determined, less hardworking, or less committed to making a positive change in this world. Instead, the change is in how far I think those characteristics can take me. So this evening, I'd like to talk about boundaries. All the factors outside ourselves that limit our own potential and define what we think we are capable of. And more importantly, why it is so important that the education of young women does not limit these boundaries. And I think it's fitting to reflect on the importance for young women to grow up with this support and sense of potential when we are not only congratulating all of you on an incredible year, but recognizing and thanking Catherine Misson for creating the type of environment where I can honestly say I believed I could be, I could accomplish, I could do anything I set my mind to. Take a moment to acknowledge and recognize the incredible environment you're a part of. Remember that feeling and use it to drive you in any moment you feel defeated, inadequate, or challenged. Because it's in these moments that it is so important to keep in mind everything we are capable of and the limitless boundaries to our potential. Because beyond those red brick walls, I've discovered, as I'm sure will you, that we as women have our cards somewhat stacked against us. And it's become common ground for anyone and everyone to voice an opinion on who or what women should be. Be smart, but that isn't always good enough. You have to be well-rounded too. Be fearless and confident, but be a lady with manners and poise. Be organized, independent, and strong, but don't be bossy, because that's unattractive. Be successful and accomplished, but not in an intimidating way. Be career-driven, but then be judged for not having children. Or if you do, don't be surprised if your career gets left behind. Women might have come a long way, and the fact that we're having these conversations is pretty spectacular in the first place. But we're a long way from having nothing to fight for. You live in a generation on the verge of something pretty remarkable, on the edge of educated, bright, successful young women, exactly like yourselves, becoming the norm and not the exception. But beyond this incredible environment that we are all so lucky to be a part of, there is still a fight to be had. Every time a woman is catcalled on the street, that is a fight to be had. Every time a female's success is viewed as remarkable instead of normal, that is a fight to be had. Why? Why fight for all those things that don't seem to affect you on a personal level? Because they do affect you. They affect your world, the world your children will grow up in. They affect what you think you are capable of, and most importantly, they affect what you think is normal, and that is the most damaging part. At 17 years of age, my boundaries felt pretty non-existent. Now, I could have put that down to my privileged upbringing, to having parents who supported every dream and motivated me to succeed, or perhaps to my competitiveness. And whilst all those things are important, fundamentally, the fact that at 17 years of age, I believed the entire world was within my grasp was down to my education. And it's so fitting that I can share this perspective this evening in front of the brilliant teachers and staff of Melbourne Girls who inspired me and pushed me to where I am today and formed such an integral core of this incredible community. Whenever I say I attended an all-girls school, the most common objection I get is that it's an unrealistic representation of the real world. Now, it may seem odd, but I do think that that is true. I don't think a single-sex education exactly represents what you'll be faced with beyond school. But I think that's exactly why young women, or any individual who identifies as female, benefits from it. Because in those first 18 years of a young woman's life, when she is questioning herself and coming to learn and accept who she is and setting those boundaries, the one most important factor to instill is confidence in herself and in her potential. If my schooling life exactly reflected what I've been faced with in the 4 years since leaving school, my boundaries would have been set before I even had the chance to realize the full extent of what I'm capable of. The unconscious bias, the unequal treatment here and there, the subtle assumption that boys do better in sciences and girls do better in humanities, the view that men are strong where women are bossy, all of these stereotypes persist in the real world. Yes, less so than 50 years ago, but they do nonetheless persist. If we aren't conscious of this, then the sad reality is that we come to expect it as normal, if that's all we've ever known. You're in a particularly special position because your education has shattered these stereotypes. Your education has taught you that talents aren't gendered nor are subjects. It's taught you that girls can be just as good as STEM, if not better. It's taught you to speak your mind without fear of being judged. It's taught you that emotion and vulnerability aren't female traits, they're human traits. And it's taught you that being a strong, independent, driven, motivated female doesn't make you bossy or cold or masculine. At an all-girls school, I had choice. I could captain a sports team if I wanted to, and it didn't have to be a girls' sport, whatever that means. I could hold any leadership position, I could take chemistry and maths and thrive in these subjects, despite the social perception that because I'm a girl, I should do worse in them. So how did this boundless optimism change when I attended university and went beyond the gates of Melbourne Girls? You don't notice it happens, but day by day, I noticed my boundaries changing. In the first lecture that I attended at Oxford University, I could see twice as many men sitting around me as I could women. Now, I studied a humanities subject, spare a thought for my sister studying computer science and software engineering, where by her third-year lectures, majority of women had dropped out, and she'd be lucky to actually find another female in the room. And I guarantee they didn't drop out for lack of ability. In my 2.5 years of university education thus far, which comes to around 300 lectures, I struggle to recall just one instance where a female raised her hand to answer a question or ask one for herself. The same can't be said for males. I found out earlier this year that my own college admits less than 40% of women, one of the worst gender imbalances in any Oxford college. I was shocked that a place I called my home could be so unequal. Now, I tried to see the positive, to recognize that perhaps now it's in the open, it can be fixed. But to my dismay, for the next cohort of students that entered my college this year, that number was even lower. I came to Oxford with the hopes and aspirations that this would be the place to take me where I wanted to go and equip me with the potential to do extraordinary things in whatever field I chose. Yet in my 3 years of education, out of the 14 subjects I've taken, I've had a female tutor for 2 of them. Now, it's hard to be inspired to be a leading woman in your field when there appear to be none there in the first place. I was honoured to be able to debate on the rise of populism at the Oxford Union. Yet when my speech was uploaded to the internet, for every 1 comment engaging in the content of my speech, you can find 3 comments on my dress or my appearance. Now, I'll leave you to use your own imagination as to what they were, because I wouldn't repeat it out loud. And it's not just in my education. In July this year, I completed an internship at a London bank. And as I sat in on meetings with the top lawyers, tax firms, and banks in the UK, in every meeting, I'd look around the 9 or so people in the room each day, and I would be lucky to see 1 other female. As a young woman starting out in that industry, it's hardly inspiring, but it speaks of the kind of treatment I should begin to expect in my career going forward. And finally, it's the everyday experiences that slip past, ashamedly almost unnoticed. Like walking down Swanston Street this morning past a man handing out flyers who commented, "You look like you could do with some cheering up, princess," because of course a polite woman would always smile. Now don't get me wrong, I've also had some incredible experiences. I've met intelligent, brilliant women doing astounding things in their careers who drive me and motivate me to be better. But nonetheless, it's safe to say that in just 4 years out of school, I've had a lot of eye-opening experiences, with the ones I just mentioned forming only a very small portion. And I'm well aware that my experiences make me one of the lucky ones. I'm white, I was born to a privileged family, and I'm growing up in the 21st century. I attended one of the best private girls' schools in Australia, and I study at one of the world's best universities. By any measure, I have had it incredibly easy. And I'm not standing here in any attempt to say that my experiences have been hard or can be equated to those who fought before me. But even despite this, we must acknowledge that these experiences, however minor and whatever level of society, they shrink the boundaries of bright young women just like yourselves. My experiences surprised me, they shocked me, and they upset me because in some ways, it taught me that to get a seat at the table, to get paid the same as a man for the same work, to be recognized as having a viable opinion despite my gender, I would have to work twice as hard as the men around me. And it wasn't impossible, no one told me I couldn't do it, but I learned for myself, from watching and from listening, that it would be just that little bit harder. But without the 8 years I spent at Melbourne Girls Grammar, it's easy to realize that I would have viewed all of the above very differently. And here's the crucial thing, I would have viewed them as normal. So yes, those who say an all-girls education doesn't reflect the real world, they might be right. But what my education taught me, what Melbourne Girls Grammar taught me, and what my teachers taught me is that what I experience now, the inequality I'm faced with, is not normal and should never be accepted as normal, because it does not have to be that way. If we expect women to tear down the patriarchy, to challenge their oppression, to fight for equal opportunities, equal pay, equal representation, then undoubtedly the most harmful thing is to teach them that the patriarchy, the oppression, the lack of opportunities, the unequal representation, and the unequal pay is normal from the day that they're born. Young women should feel inspired to challenge the world around them, not because I say so or because feminism tells them they should, but because they themselves, as an individual, think their own treatment is incorrect. An education should inspire, and that's exactly what mine did. It taught me to believe that I was just as worthy as anyone else of success in any field I should choose. And that is the truth. But sadly, it's not the reality I or anyone else in this room faces or will face. But having those boundless beliefs meant that that standard of equality, of respect, and of treatment is what I expected of myself and what I demanded of those around me, regardless of what society tells me I should accept. And I think for young women, a crucial part of your education is about letting you set your own boundaries before the world has a chance to do it for you. As I look upon such an incredibly bright, inquisitive group of outstanding young women, it's exciting to think how the dreams that you have in your own head, be it to be a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an AFL player, will become a reality. You'll face challenges and hardships, you'll feel defeated at times, but I have confidence in the fact that the environment you are in now will equip you with the ability to overcome that. And if you're sitting there thinking, but of course I can do anything I want, I'm bright and hardworking, no one's stopping me, then congratulations. Hold on to that feeling, recognize its rarity, and cherish it. So at 21 years of age, I have a lot of learning left to do, and perhaps it's still a little early to reflect on what my education at this school has given me. My speech began last time by remembering all the things I'd wanted to be growing up, from a fairy at age 5 to a neurosurgeon in my teens. And as a bit of reassurance, it's changed many times since I gave that speech, and I'm still very unsure. But one bit of advice I have for you all is to set your own boundaries and set them beyond what others will tell you is normal. You have infinite potential, so decide who you want to be and where you want to go, and let that guide you. Not the statistics you'll hear about gender inequality, or the inferiority you'll inevitably feel as the only girl in the room. Be guided by the environment you are in now, not the environment where it's normal and expected for women to be inferior. And hopefully with this attitude, Slowly but surely, we begin to create a generation of young women who expect better treatment, who demand an equal say, who challenge what you and I know as normal, and who smash every stereotype that tells them who or what they should be. Thank you.